Ruts don't exist, and by the end of the video you will think the same. Although this might sound a bit outlandish and insane and incredible, you may have been in a few ruts before in your life, but by my definition of ruts, that is not what happened. Let me explain. So ruts we conceptualize of as instances in our life where we kind of dip below our standard of happiness that we really like, or our desired state doesn't match reality, essentially. We go down here if this graph is resembling our happiness, and we're in a sad state. And this happens quite often to us as humans. We end up not feeling perfect all the time quite often, because it's just part of human nature. It's just the vast array of emotions that we sense as humans. Sadness is a part of that. But I would argue that this isn't a rut, and ruts don't actually exist. Let me explain why I think this. So back when I was in university, I went to university about 3 years ago, I think now. Maybe a bit more than 3 years even, or was it 2 years? Fuck if I know. Anyway, I went to university, and no, it was a bit over 2 years ago now, yeah. And I dropped out after 2 months, and it's quite an intricate thing. I made a lengthy talking video about it, uncut. It's on my second channel. But without diving too deep into the details of it, I dropped out because I didn't really feel like I belonged. I didn't really feel a connection to my course. I didn't really feel I was getting a return on my finances. Like pretty much every reason in the book that is possible. But that's not really what I want to get at here. I went to university thinking that I will be like a fun social guy. I will go to the gym. I will love what I'm doing. I will make a bit of money on the side. I will probably get a job somewhere. And none of this ended up happening. Now, why did none of this end up happening? It's a very, very interesting question, and I look back to this time quite often, because if I set out to do these things, why do they not manifest into reality? If I acquire some goals, obviously not every single time will they become apparent, and will they become actually my reality, my truth. But these goals I was pretty set on, I was pretty determined to get these, and yet none of them did I actually achieve. It all went wrong, I guess. Whenever I went to university, a few days before that I got injured, and my wrist got heavily injured, and I couldn't go to the gym, and that was my main form of socialization after I left high school. So that also was like a big hit to me. But also what ended up happening was I sat beside people in lectures, and I started talking to them, and every single time I wouldn't get met by too warm of a response. This was partly because in computer science people are known to be quite geeky, and that is kind of what I sensed. And I just didn't feel like I belonged. I didn't feel like I could get into deep conversations with people. So a few bad things, I guess, happened, and a few things that were off-putting from my environment, that signaled negative reinforcement from outside, and I ended up going down this negative spiral. But the thing is, if it were bad enough to be considered a rut, I would have never fallen into it. And let me explain why. So, what ended up happening was, I ended up going down, and I stayed at quite a low point for quite a long while. So this is maybe a bit representative of what my experience was like. However, this dotted line in red on this board right now is showing our minimum standards. So we have a current reality, what our experience of current reality is, and how we would rate it based on how satisfied and content we are with our current reality. And this dotted line of red dots is our minimum standards. This basically means if our minimum standards are crossed, if our current state of reality goes below our minimum standards, we will take desperate action to get out of there. So every time, you might have seen this, for every time you actually feel like you're in danger, like your life is about to end, or you are just about to get humiliated or something like that, you can't think of anything else. This is why the part of your brain that is responsible for fear, for example, your amygdala starts firing rapidly, and it's sending signals to your brain that we need to enter this fight or flight state, because you are no longer content in that reality. And for everyone, this level is different. This red level of minimum standards, that the absolute bare minimum that you will accept, it's different. And what ended up happening for me was, this isn't actually entirely accurate, because I ended up being just above this minimum standard for quite a while. So this is the realistic line. And then after a while, I was not really socializing. I couldn't go to the gym, which I really enjoyed. I wasn't making any money because I wasn't going out to get jobs. I was falling back into the previous patterns that I didn't really like. I was having diseases, quite severe diseases. At the point, I was convinced that I had cancer and shit like that, because I read too much fucking bullshit online and everything. It was quite a bad time for me in my life, honestly. And after a while, this line was crossed. Now this is what people usually call ruts. This part here, when they are in a bad situation, but it's not bad enough for them to actually get out of it. And in that conceptualization of it, it might be a rut. But if we're talking about ruts in the sense that a rut is actually like a very, very bad period in your life, you cannot be in a rut, because what happens if you actually go below this line of your minimum standards, of what you're actually like the bare minimum current reality that you're going to accept, you fucking shoot back up. That's exactly what I did after I left. This was exactly when I left out of high school, dropped out of university. And I went back to my parents' house. I was still shit then, because obviously I had to have a tough conversation with them. I had to face my finances. I had to face my situation. I moved back to my home country alone, and I made it happen. Because when you're at this point, you make it happen. You don't have a choice, and your mind knows that. But that only happens when you're actually at a state where you need to make it happen. So this is the point of this video. You have these minimum standards over here, this line that is very, very clearly drawn, and most people never actually get to this in their life, because comfort is the most addicting drug ever. What ends up happening is that you're in this region above this dotted line, this dotted red line. I'm going to get another color, maybe blue, and I'm going to draw another dotted line above it. So you have this region here. Hold on, let me move a bit. Maybe it's about here. And this is what people call ruts. This area. So this is, let's say, I didn't draw this scale accurately, but this is like a 2 out of 10 reality here. And the top blue line is like 4 out of 10. So the red line is like 2 out of 10. You're very, very sad and life's just shit. And the red line is like 4 out of 10. This is what people call ruts. I wouldn't say this is a rut, because you're actually satisfied with this. You're not happy, but you're okay because it's comfortable, because it isn't actually that bad, because your life right now doesn't require change. The reason why this is so bad is because if it's not good, but it's comfortable, you're not going to change. And something still has to happen. And most people live their whole entire fucking life in this region. It's called the region beta. There's a paradox called region beta paradox. And the problem with this is that fucking everyone is in here. And every time they get in here, they call it a rut and they say, oh, I'm just apathetic, I'm just lethargic, I'm just depressed. And that might be true. I'm not going to discount any of these. I'm not going to tell you that your situation is not valid, is not true. But the thing is, the only way to actually get out of it, in my experience, is first of all to not get into it. You notice this downward spiral and you're like, holy shit, okay, we need to change because this is going to be bad. Or you actually go below it here, because then your situation is going to be bad enough to you to enter this fight or flight mode and get cold sweats at night and not be able to fall asleep and shit like this, which obviously is an undesirable state to be in. So the best thing is to just not get into this state first of all and just follow this red line which goes up. But the thing is, you're better off going below, because this is the only way to slingshot out of it if you're really stuck in here. The reason for this is just that you simply don't feel as bad just yet for you to change, because our reptilian brains evolved in a way where if we feel the base amount of comfort, the base amount of it's okay to stay here, it's not comfortable, it's not desire, I mean it is comfortable, it's not happy, it's not joyful, it's not we don't feel content, we don't feel fulfillment here. But it's okay, because if we change, that's risky, and we really, really don't want change, because our reptilian brain thinks that change isn't certain, and certainty is the key to survival. If we do something uncertain, we eat the berries which might be poisonous, we join the tribe which might betray us, we're facing a risk here. So that might be an upside, but we're facing a risk, and although there is no upside to staying here, the upside is that this is already known. This blue area, region beta, which is bad but not bad enough. That's fine. We can stay there for as long as we want, But the problem with it nowadays is that it just ends up with a life of fucking sorrow and regret. So how do we get out of region beta, and how do we get into this area, which is an actual rut? This is where I would consider you to be an actual fucking rut. But the thing is, these don't last long, because you put in such an amount of effort to slingshot out of it almost instantly. It will only take like a few days or a few weeks, and I promise you that, because if you actually are in a state where you really like hate your reality and you really will do anything to get out of it, and not just say it, because by the way, everyone says this. Everyone's like, yeah bro, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna become this person, yeah. Like, if you're talking about it, I know you're not gonna fucking do it, because if you're at this state and if you genuinely like feel this bad, you don't need to tell anyone else. You know what you're gonna do. You know that you have no other choice. You don't need to tell your whole fucking family and your grandmother and everyone. You already know you have no choice. So how do you either not fall in a rut in the first place, which is the best thing to do, and if you're in a rut, how do you escape it as fast as possible? So the first thing you can do to fix this problem is to take the risk, is for once in your fucking life, bet on yourself. Because for most people, you never actually get to the point where you really trust yourself. How many bets have you taken on yourself which actually have like severe downsides, which actually have outsized returns, which actually have chances to change your life? And I don't say that in like a poetic fucking way. Like everyone says, this book changed my life, and this idea changed my life. Like, how many times have you actually had your life changed by that business, by that idea, or by that thing? Where you actually took like a 180? Because some people have, sure, but most people haven't. Most people say this fucking changed my life shit all the time. So how do you actually take the risk? Look at yourself in the fucking mirror and ask yourself, am I in region beta? Am I between the blue and the red lines? Am I below the line where I actually can call myself happy? Am I like in a mundane, apathetic, boring, bleak state? And am I in a state where I will do anything to get out of it? Because the chances are, you might be in a state like this, you might be in a not too happy state, but you're probably not in a state where it's so bad that you literally can't take it anymore. And I'm not saying this is for everyone. I'm aware that some people are just allergic to risk-taking. Some people are just always going to take the safe side. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But if you're somewhat like me, you would rather go below your means, live like this for a few weeks, for a few months even, but maybe just for a few days, and slingshot back up. And go back up and live at a very, very high level of life. But if you're not like that, that's fine also. The region beta is awaiting you. You can do that. That's fine. I don't give a shit, really. I know that sounds a lot very condescending, but I truly don't care. But for those people who are willing to take the risk and bet on themselves once in their lives and actually find their balls, or if you're a woman, then hypothetically, do it. Tell yourself, okay, I will take the hit. I will leave the relationship that's okay but not really good. I will drop out of university where the degree would be kind of nice, and the prestige and the respect I get from my elders and everyone would be kind of nice, but it's not really truly who I am. And also just understand that maybe moving to another city or whatever the play may be for you is finally worth taking, even if it isn't like ultimately that safe. It's still worth doing, because it's what you've been wanting for a while, and you will know, like right now, by the way, while you're listening to this video, you already know what I'm talking about, what this is going to be for you. So what is it? What would be the thing that you need to quit? What would be the thing you need to introduce? What would be the thing you need to change? Would you start the business? Would you start a side hustle? Would you pick up a new hobby? Would you leave the relationship? What is the thing for you that you've been neglecting, and neglecting this thing has been causing God to punish you? You need to understand this, because if you don't, you will stay here. Like, this region is so hard to get out of. That's why it's so punishing, is because most people actually live their lives here. Between this like 4 or maybe 5 out of 10 state, and between this 2 state, they're just in quiet misery. Just time's just passing and life's just happening to them, and they're not happening to life. So this is the first way to get out of it. The second thing is to elevate your standards. When I was reading the Diary of a CEO's book, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like 33 Laws of a CEO or something like that. There was a chapter called You Cannot Change Your Beliefs. And I found this really fascinating because the author proposed a hypothetical example where you were sitting in a hostage negotiation room or whatever, and you had a gun held to your head, and the person said, you need to believe the earth is flat, or like something that is obviously untrue, or at least you believe it to be the other way around. And if you don't believe that thing, you will get shot. What would you think would happen? Would you suddenly believe that the earth is flat? The author proposed that you wouldn't, and you would end up dying, because our beliefs aren't a thing we can change. You cannot change your beliefs, at least not at the wave of a fucking magic wand. We believe things because we've gathered evidence in our subconscious mind for that thing to be true. Let me give you an example. If you think that all these chalky croissants are very tasty, it's probably because you've smelt them, you've tasted them, you've also heard what other people think about them, and you think that, yeah, those croissants are very, very tasty. And they are, by the way. You would be right in that. But for you to have the belief that they aren't tasty anymore, they would probably need to change the recipe, or at least your perception of the croissants would have to change. You would have to gather some evidence in your mind where your mind would come to the logical conclusion that those croissants are no longer tasty. Maybe other people would have to start saying that they're not tasty anymore. Maybe you take a few more. You would start to realize that there's some kind of, I don't know, bit of a bad flavor on it. Maybe you would see one that's moldy. Maybe you would not really sense the smell of it to be that pleasurable anymore. Something would have to happen for you to actually understand that those croissants are not the shit anymore. And that plays a big role in this. Because a lot of people, their standards are set by their beliefs. They believe that they cannot realistically get any better. They believe that they deserve what they have often. They believe that their situation is just what God handed to them. Those are just the cards that they were dealt, and that they cannot change. And that, yeah, the salary for me is normal. I shouldn't really aim for more. Yeah, this relationship, I'm probably not going to get a better partner anyway, so I'm just going to take this. Yeah, the place I want to live, it's not really that nice, but I mean, this is just the place I live now, so I guess that's just how it goes. So these are the things that you internalize into yourself, and you've gathered so much evidence for these things that you actually just think that they're objective truths. And you don't really question them anymore, you just run with them. We question every belief other than those which we truly believe, right? So you don't even question these beliefs anymore, you just think this, and this is your minimum standard of living. You will realize that this is very different for other people. I just circle this 2 because that's like somewhat of an average that I can take, I think. But this is very different for a lot of people. If you imagined a billionaire, Elon Musk, for example, if he earns $100,000 in this month, he would be so far below this line. He would be down here because he's used to earning billions of dollars a month or whatever. Like, I don't know his salary, but he earns a lot of money. And if he earned 100k, which for the average person would put them like here, super high up, because that's like unfathomable money for the most of us, it's very different, you understand? So, and for example, someone who's never been in a relationship, if they were in like a 4 out of 10 relationship, they would also be here because they haven't really experienced that. But for someone who's always had a myriad of potential partners around them, been through a bunch of relationships, etc., if they got like a 4 out of 10 relationship, they would probably be here. Or someone who's been happily married for a long time, and they just got someone who they're like kind of a bit appalled by, but not that much, they would also be down here. So you understand how this is different for everyone. And every belief that you have about yourself right now, you should start questioning, why do I believe this? And the way you change your beliefs is by actually telling yourself that you might be wrong. It's taking the bullet, taking the hit to your ego, telling yourself that, hey, this is based on all the evidence I gathered so far. What if my perception of this thing is incorrect? What if I have been gathering data from one source instead of looking at all the different sources? What if I've been gathering data in a way which isn't logical? The jury is still out. This is the attitude I want you to take. The jury is still out. I'm not sure if this thing that I understand is correct, because we've seen, I'm not going to say a bunch of these, but you've probably heard of these stories of these very poor people who end up going in and becoming like billionaires or whatever, and they had to change their mindset about this because they probably believed at one point that they were like not worthy of getting money, they were just programmed by society to actually believe that they had to have very, very low standards. It was probably about here maybe even, But once they dipped even below this, like they probably had lost everything. You've heard these kind of stories before. They lost everything, went homeless, etc., etc. They were like, okay, it doesn't matter anymore. I'm just going to fucking try because I have nothing to lose. This is the part that I'm telling you about, below your minimum standards. And then once you have nothing to lose, you don't have these beliefs holding you down anymore, then you slingshot up. So as we said, that's the first thing, to go below your minimum beliefs. But the second thing is, how can we actually elevate our standards? Minimum standards, I meant, sorry. I probably said minimum beliefs a few times there. So how do we actually elevate our minimum standards? First of all, if we go below our minimum standards, they often get elevated. But how can we elevate them without our current level of life satisfaction and contentness going down? So if we stay here, how can we get our standard to come to us like that? And this would also be like a breaking point, which would lead us to slingshot back up, if we actually had our standards come up to our level, understand? So the way you do that is by having this "the jury is still out" attitude. What I mean by that is, understand that you don't have the perfect model. You're not like a god, objectively. So how about we think, maybe I might be wrong about this concept. Let's just analyze the facts. So if you think, the person with my knowledge, a person who's, let's say, I'm not that smart, I couldn't earn that much money. Let's just say that's what I believe. Well, has there been someone who's dumber than you, who's earned a lot more money than you're earning? There probably has, hasn't there? Okay, I can't get an attractive girlfriend. Has there been someone who's uglier, who's less financially stable than you, who's less ripped than you, who got a attractive girlfriend? Yeah, there probably has, okay. I can't be healthy. This disease of mine can't be cured. Well, has no one ever cured it before? Ever? No one. I don't think so. You understand how our models aren't often accurate. I'm not saying every single time you have to delude yourself to the extreme and say that, okay, just because one person has done it, I'm obviously going to do it. That's not entirely the case here. But the thing is, having this fixed mindset of, okay, this is just what I deserve, and this is going to be a constant from now on, a stable line that doesn't go either up or down, is a flawed paradigm to understand reality through. So what you need to do is elevate this. Understand that the jury is still out. And once the jury is out, once you're actually gathering information and making new assessments based on that information, look through everything, every resource that you have. You get external resources, such as look up examples on YouTube. Look up people who are earning more than you. What do they have? How did they do it? How did they start? Look at people who are very like disease-stricken and unhealthy. How did they get healthy? How did they get jacked? How did they look more aesthetic, etc., etc.? Look for opposites. Look for information. Actually have an open mindset. Again, this will lead you to take a hit to your ego, but this is the way to get out of this mindset. Because if you don't actually believe that you deserve more, if you don't think it's possible to get more, it's all belief-centered, then you're never going to. You're going to remain here. You're going to be stuck in the beta region, and you're never going to slingshot out. So the second thing, other than you literally just making your reality worse to go below your minimum standards, is to elevate your minimum standards. Understand that you don't have the correct perception of reality. No one does. And you might be wrong. And you might just elevate your minimum standards. Okay, my camera just died and I had to recharge my battery and we're back, but the sun's about to go down, so let's wrap it up quickly. The third thing is to avoid the BR, which is beta region. I probably should have wrote region beta the other way around, but this is funny because it can be misinterpreted for battle royale, so I'm going to keep it this way. So the first thing you can do to not get into this beta region in the first place is something I'm going to explain through a story. So when I was initially starting in this business thing and entrepreneurship and this kind of thing, after I dropped out actually after the story which I just explained to you in the first part, I hopped around business models. I had shiny object syndrome, which we call it, which is basically always hopping from opportunity to opportunity. And what I ended up realizing about my fifth or sixth opportunity was it doesn't really matter the vehicle that you're in, as long as it just has a few things. Like obviously it has to be like scalable, and you actually have to like doing it a bit maybe. There's a few things, but other than those, it really doesn't matter. I tried video editing, I tried short form theme pages, I tried YouTube, I've tried software as a service, I tried SMM, like pretty much every business model you can name. I looked into dropshipping, etc., etc. And about the fifth or sixth one, I was like, wait, hold on. If we just took the first one and they just elongated the time period, and for the past 6 months, instead of switching at about a rate of every 30 days, I switched my business model. What if I just did the first business model for the last 6 months consistently? And even if I didn't get that much work done, what if I just worked for 3 hours a day? If I got 3 hours, I send the messages that I needed to send in those 3 hours, I did the client work that I had to do, what would happen then? And I came to the conclusion that I would be making like money, like good money then, like a few $1,000s at least. And that's amazing for me because I wasn't making any money when I came to this realization first. So I was like, holy shit, like this really was a paradigm shift, because this really brought me to the conclusion that every single day that you waste kind of is wasted because you feel like you didn't even do the bare minimum. If we actually come to a realization, it's not the days where you work 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours or be productive all day that are the good days where you have nothing left in the tank. Sure, those are nice, but imagine just every single day that you don't check off as a failure. If every single day you have a bare minimum of, okay, I'm going to post one video for my YouTube channel. Okay, I'm going to read 20 pages of this book. Okay, I'm going to hit this workout, which is 30 minutes long. If I do the base minimum every single day, that will compound over the years. And if I have a shit day, but I do the minimum, that will not be a shit day anymore. That will be an okay day. And that's amazing. So what you need to realize is if you have a few non-negotiables, you will already win by default. And of course, if you want to do it, which most cases you will want to do it, if you get started, you'll be like, okay, I've done 30 minutes of my workout, but you can still go for a run. That's kind of not too taxing. Or you can still do 1 or 2 isolation exercises. Or you could still go play football with your friends after this. So you can keep going. Or if you work for like 2 hours or shoot 1 YouTube video, you could be like, okay, I could double it today. I could do 2. So you're often going to feel like this, but even if you don't, you just do the non-negotiables. And I got this concept from Lex Friedman, I think. In one podcast he said he has like a list of non-negotiables every day, but they're like very, very, very little, like very base minimum shit. Like 1 minute of meditation. The reason it's so little is because you literally don't miss it. Like non-negotiable actually means you don't negotiate on it, okay? A lot of people like to say, oh, set high goals, set really high goals, extreme, like unreasonably reasonable, or like all of this stupid shit, in my opinion. Because what these people say is, oh, you have to set high goals because da-da-da-da-da. But the thing is, if you set high goals and you don't achieve it, you just feel like shit. And it reinforces a negative self-image, and you're not going to help someone you hate. That's a big one. Like that was a big fucking paradigm shift for me. So self-image over everything, and also just if you set unrealistic goals and don't hit them, I mean, you're just going to go into this all or nothing mindset, and that's when you're going to fall into this rut, or at least the region beta, right? That's become apparent in this video, that most of the people who call things ruts are just actually in region beta and not in actual ruts, because if you actually fell in a rut, you would come out quite quickly. Point being, if you set yourself very small minimum goals, non-negotiable goals such as 1 minute of meditation, 10 push-ups. Like you can drop down right now and hit 10 push-ups, can't you? Literally, as you're watching this video, you could probably leave your headset on and do 10 push-ups. It's not that hard, is it? So why can't you do this? And the good thing with this is that if you write like a few of these, maybe you write 6, and you write the last one, and then you say, this is amazing because it exploits the 2-minute rule. Because the 2-minute rule basically says, if you don't want to do an activity, you're feeling like you're procrastinating, just do 2 minutes. Because if you do 2 minutes, or just get started, right? That's essentially what it means. If you do 2 minutes, you will very likely continue going on, because it's just the starting, the kinetic friction to get started is what's really hard about the activity itself. And that's the truth in most cases. Now, when you start and when you sit down and when you get working and when you put on your camera and when you start recording, you're in a flow state. You're not really thinking anything else. You're just doing the thing, and it's really hard to stop actually most of the time. But you are going to have days where you feel like shit. Where you started and it's still like a slog, it's still like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to do this, I'm not feeling energetic, and it's still just not nice. And the thing is, you can quit. Like, we're not trying to kid ourselves here. We are human beings, but you're going to have shit days. And this is going to have like maybe a 90% success rate. And some days you're just going to feel like shit. And that's fine. That's the point of this. That's the whole basis of this. If you do the non-negotiables every single day, you're going to be fine. You're not going to lose any muscle because you've done the bare minimum to keep it up. You're not going to lose any of your mental clarity gains because you've done the bare minimum to keep that up. And even the self-image gains, like the identity shifts that you've had, you're not going to lose any of those you've had recently because you tried. You gave it your all. Usually, when it's where we feel like we had a shit day or if we're feeling down, it's because we know that wasted potential is there. You know, we know that we're wasting our potential. We know that we're fucking up. We know that we're not living true to ourselves. We know that we didn't even try. That's scary, okay? Because every single time you try, you give it your all and you're like, fuck, okay, it's just not working today. Okay, I've done a very good job in the past few weeks. I'm just going to take a day off now and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. That's amazing. Of course, you still have to do it 90% of the time. I'm not saying you need to take days off, but even if like this does occur and the 2-minute rule doesn't follow through as it usually does, it's fine. It's okay. Just do the fucking non-negotiables. Do this. If you keep a steady pace every single day, you do the bare minimum, you should be fine. Every single day, when I write my to-do list, I do this. I write my list every single night before the day, and the first 2 or maybe 3 things, maybe I'm just going to circle it, these are my non-negotiables. I have a few non-negotiables, like basically I try to meditate every day 1 minute, I do that, I do push-ups, these are just examples, but the thing is every day I have like 3 non-negotiable tasks. This could be like shooting a video, this could be going to the gym, going shopping, but these things, if these things are done, my day's already a good day. I'm not going to like feel bad about myself. I give myself the opportunity to clock out after I do these things, to check out for the day. Usually it doesn't happen. Usually I keep going, but honestly, like if I do these things, if I like tick these boxes and I'm like, okay, done that, I could just choose to discontinue. I could choose to do nothing more that day. I could choose to play video games or obviously like not do something extremely destructive, but I don't even feel like pulled to do like stupid shit like drugs and alcohol and stuff like that anymore, so I'm not really going to do those anyway. The point here is you've definitely said this to yourself and you were like, wait, if I just did like 3 hours of good work every single day, I would be golden by now. But the thing is, even when we work like 8-hour days and we tell ourselves we work that long and we're clocked in from 9 to 5, we usually don't. Like, you know this, we take extra long on the toilet, we're scrolling, we get a notification, we get a call, we answer, we go on like the food breaks, and we're not actually working for 8 hours. If you actually worked for like 4 hours every day, but you actually did that, you would be so fucking far ahead by now. So the point of this whole thing is to not overswing ourselves. When you really feel like you can overswing, like sure, maybe a bit, I'm not saying you can't do any extra after this, of course, like you're allowed to do more, but this is a base that you need to hold. If you just do the non-negotiables every single day, it will be very hard for you to fall into ruts. And the final point I want to make is every single time you fall into a rut, or at least in the beta region, this area that is like bad but not bad enough for you to change, and you get stuck there, the downward spiral that you experience when you're kind of having a good life and then you end up going down, like this part of the equation, when you're going down, you know you're doing the bad things. You know you just skipped like 2 days of meditation. You know you just ate junk food. Like you know logically that you're no longer that person, that you shouldn't do these things, that it's bad for you, etc., etc. But you still do them. Why? Because you're not mindful. Because you're checked out, because you're coping, because you're giving this reptilian part of your brain access over the fundamental control of what you're doing. So you're convincing yourself, oh no, I'll just work out afterwards, and then you end up not working out afterwards because you come up with another excuse. So this excuse upon excuse upon excuse, you end up coping, and these copes end up piling up, and you end up doing the bad action. And the best way to counteract this is, first of all, to just do the good actions every single day, but the bad actions, how about not doing those? The best thing about this you can do is actually be aware. You need to cultivate awareness, and the best way to cultivate awareness, you probably guessed it, is by having a meditation practice. Like it looks a bit scuffed how I wrote that, but that means meditation, okay? So just do meditation every single day. It's the art of focusing on one singular thing at a time. It's the art of keeping your focused on one thing, strengthening the muscle of focus, because it works the same exact way. Every single psychiatrist and every single person who's a bit spiritual and like tuned into these kind of stuff always says the muscle is a focus. That focus is a muscle. You need to focus and train your focus just like you were training your biceps in the gym. Every single time you go back and you get distracted once you're meditating, and you go back to the point of focus that you're focused on, which is usually like the breath, you're like, okay, I just did one bicep curl in the gym. I just got a bit stronger. Hypertrophy is just clicking in. My muscle protein synthesis for my focus is just starting to get going. So every single time you do this, you get a bit more focused. And the next time you're going to be eating junk food, you're going to be like, fuck, this isn't in tune with my identity. You're going to have this moment of awareness where you actually gain an overarching view of your life, and you're going to be like, wait, I'm just being a fucking monkey again. I'm just doing this animal thing. Like my instinct told me to do this, my impulse did, and now I'm just doing it. And maybe you're going to quit next time halfway through, you end up going up instead of going down. And it's easier to stay mindful of this as well if you have a good level of awareness. And another good tip is to just incorporate this in your routine. So maybe you have a time you meditate. Maybe you have a time you're reminded that you need to meditate. So every night you look at the things you haven't done yet and you just do them. Or every morning maybe you just rush and tick all of these boxes that you need to. I don't know. So the first thing, just have a list of non-negotiables, do them, and exploit the 2-minute rule while you're at it, because this is a very good way to beat procrastination and get started on the things that actually matter for the day and get that low amount of deep work in that you need to do in order to check the day and tell yourself that this is a good day already. Then you can keep going if you want to, but you don't have to keep going. And after you've done this, just have a stable meditation practice. Like, please, it's really not that hard to meditate that often. You don't need to do it for half an hour, for 40 minutes, for 45 minutes, for an hour. A bunch of these spiritual gurus don't even do it themselves that often. Like, I know this. And you don't need to. Obviously, there are some benefits to it, but just doing 10, 15 minutes every day, and obviously if you're a beginner, just starting with 2 minutes or 5 minutes or something, it's fine. Like, again, it's good, like going to the gym. You're not going to start with 80 kg on the fucking bench press. You're going to start with 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or however strong you already are, right? So you're going to start low, work your way up, because it is a muscle and you need to train it just like any other muscle. This is the way you don't fall into ruts. Ruts themselves don't actually exist, because for you to actually be in a rut, you need to be below your standards. And if you actually go below your standards, you will slingshot out of it. The only thing that does exist that you think of as ruts are negative situations which are still comfortable, not bad enough. And these are region beta, like paradoxes, region beta states. The way you get out of region beta is by these things that we've discussed, is by either going back down and actually falling into a rut, which only lasts for like a day or two or maybe a week or two, slingshotting back out, increasing your standards to the point where you're no longer satisfied with where you are currently by challenging your beliefs. And the third way is to just not fall into ruts. And the third place is what we've just recapped, so I'm not going to do it again. Goodbye.